Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hearing from the Bhagavad-Gita, as it is, chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Text 3. As you like. Yeah, leave that one. Yes, thank you. Sa eva yam maya teja. Text 3, 4-3. Yoga prokta puratanaha. Bhakto si me sakha cheti. Rahasyam hyetad uttamam. Word for word. Sa, the same. The same. Eva, certainly. I am. This. Maya, by me. Te, unto you. Adya, today. Yoga, the science of yoga. Prokta, spoken. Puratanaha, very old. Bhakta, devotee. Asi, you are. Me, my. Sakha, friend. Cha, also. Iti, therefore. Rahasyam, mystery. He, certainly. Etat, this. Uttamam, transcendental. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Please repeat. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Purport. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science, owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary on the Gita, following in the footsteps of Arjuna, is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demoniac, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers from the path of Krishna instructions. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshu Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Panchakapatribhishcha kripa sindhu bevata patnam pavnabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So the word science is mentioned in this translation and purport a number of times. And one of the main points being made here is that the demons are not going to understand it. So the demons don't follow the Shastras, they don't accept the Shastras. Ya Shastra vidimutsucha vartate kamakarata na sasidim avatnoti na sukam na param gatim. The demons do not accept the scripture, therefore they act whimsically, and all their attempts at happiness, they will not achieve happiness, they will not achieve perfection in life, they will not achieve the ultimate goal of life. All these things. They also, naturally, the difference between the demon and the divine is that the demoniac persons do not follow the scriptures. That is basically the difference. If you don't follow the scriptures, then you are a demon. If you do, then you're a divine. So the demons don't accept that there is a controller. Asatyam apratishtam te jagad ahur anishvaram. They say that the material world is unreal, that it has no foundation, anishvaram, that there is no controller. They think everything is happening by chance. Therefore they are free to do whatever they desire. I will accumulate so much money today, and tomorrow I will accumulate more money, and I have killed one enemy and I will kill my other enemies. So they don't follow this real science. This is a real science of the Bhagavad-Gita is science. It's real science, theological science. Real science means not like the scientists nowadays. They take some arbitrary point and begin, and they study the phenomenal world. So that's a childish attempt. So they come up with reasons for a creation which are totally speculative, like the Big Bang Theory, or we all develop from a soup or something like that.
So, what was the childish attempt?
Pardon?
You mentioned that something's a childish attempt.
Yes, just to study the phenomenal world is a childish attempt. Without understanding what is the first cause, where is everything coming from? If you don't accept that there is divine design, then actually everything that you conclude will be wrong. It will be based upon a wrong premise. So therefore, they don't accept Achintya Shakti. And that's real science, means to understand Achintya Shakti, how everything is developing. I mean, we have very little idea of how our bodies work, how our nails are growing, how our hair is growing, how our body digests the food, how blood is being formed. I mean, there are scientific descriptions. They observe the phenomena. According to the scientists, everything that we do is just simply a combination or interaction of material elements or chemicals. So they think that once they understand, say, the chemical composition of the brain, what happens under certain circumstances, then they will understand why it is we behave in certain ways. So this is a kind of childish attempt, and of course they haven't solved the problem of birth and death, old age and disease. And real science means, of course, to understand what is matter and what is spirit. It means to accept that there is not only the material world, but there's also a spiritual world. So theological science we accept. Theology means study of religion, religious belief. So if we remain third-class devotees, we will not have sufficient knowledge to advance very rapidly in spiritual life, because Shraddha to Prema is actually that is the science, theological science, Shraddha to Prema. But from Karma Yoga to Prema is a long way. Karma Yoga means the beginning. That is, what is the beginning? Karma Yoga means what? That's the beginning of transcendental realization. Is Karma Yoga means just to give up the fruits of your work, results of your work. That's the beginning, Karma Yoga. From there to Prema is a long way. I mean, to advance from Karma Yoga, you have to be non-envious, you have to practice austerities, renunciation. Then you may become a jnani, a speculator. And then if you advance from that, maybe you may become a yogi, but above that there is the devotee. So that's, from Shraddha to Prema is a long way, but that is the science. We begin with Shraddha, which is faith. That faith may be just a small faith based upon the curiosity of what is going on here, or it may be a faith based upon something you've heard, or it could be faith based upon simply the activities of devotees, observing devotees. So therefore, on the basis of that faith, sadhu sangha, we develop sadhu sangha. We want to associate with devotees to find out more. And then when we become, when we've had that association for some time, then we will become initiated, that is bhajana kriya. One will become initiated and start chanting Hare Krishna. So that when we start chanting Hare Krishna, then we will begin the process of anatta nivritti, which is the process of getting rid of the unwanted things within our heart, all the unwanted desires within our heart. So from Shraddha up to anatta nivritti is really a struggle in spiritual life. Until we get rid of the unwanted things, it's more or less, there is some force necessary. One has to be very determined. Just like Prabhupada says, to give medicine to a horse, what does it take? 4 people, is it? To hold one put. Anyway, in the beginning goes that idea that there must be, we have to force ourselves to chant Hare Krishna. We have to force ourselves to get up early in the morning. Those things are still problems for us. Getting up early in the morning is certainly can be still a problem after so many years of devotional. So we're not exactly springing out of bed in the morning. So up to anatta nivritti, once we're through anatta nivritti, then nishtha, that means our faith becomes very firm. And then after that there is ruchi. That means taste. After firm faith there is ruchi, which means taste. That means that you don't want to do anything except hear about Krishna. You won't want to eat anything that's not offered to Krishna. Your whole life will be Krishnized, and your life will actually be changed when you get to ruchi. And then after ruchi there is attachment, ashakti, which is the point at which we will not give up devotional service. Once there is attachment, we will not want to give up devotional service at all, under any circumstances. And then, of course, there is bhava, which is initial emotion, love for Krishna, at that stage we will actually be able to speak to Krishna directly at that stage. And then of course there is the highest love, which is prema. So that's all science, and you can't put one thing before the other. You can't put ruchi before nishta. It doesn't work. Just like, if you're cooking something, cooking a preparation or anything, you have to put in the right ingredients if you want to get the right result. If you don't put in the right ingredients, you won't get the right result you want. So that's all very scientific. And we have the head and the heart. The head and the heart must be satisfied. Religion means religion and philosophy. It doesn't mean just religion. Religion without philosophy is sentiment. Sentiment, sometimes fanaticism. Religion without philosophy. Philosophy without religion is dry speculation. So we want both to satisfy the heart. And it's only in devotional service that we can actually know how we're advancing in spiritual life. In karma yoga, in jnana yoga, it's very like the jnani. Sometimes he thinks he's liberated, and sometimes he's not sure about that. They're never quite sure what their situation is. But in devotional life, there are so many tests. For instance, are we becoming free from the lower modes of material nature, from passion and ignorance? That is one test. Are we becoming happy? It's just like if you are hungry and have a nice meal, then you'll feel satisfied. In devotional service, are we feeling satisfied? So these are the progresses. So real knowledge is actually knowledge coming from, real science is knowledge coming from the parampara. And it is this very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and therefore can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So only a devotee can understand. The demon can't understand. A devotee can understand. Therefore, it's necessary to associate with devotees in order to understand this great science of devotional service. Without this association, Prabhupada says, without associating with devotees who have realization, who have some potency, then we can hear for 3 million years and still have our questions unanswered. Satam prasangam mama virya sambuddho vivanti hrit karna rishayana kata. That association with the satam, the pure devotees, is very enlivening to the ear and to the heart. And in their association, it's bhakti ratir anukramishati, that this advancement in devotional service comes one after the other. It's the science. In the association of the potent devotees, this science is realized. Just like Brahma was initially inspired by Krishna from within his heart. Tene Brahma Adhikavaye. He got knowledge because he was the only living entity existing at that time. So Krishna gave him that knowledge from within the heart. And he gave that knowledge to Narada Muni. Narada Muni gave it to Vyasadeva, and so it comes down in the unbroken chain of disciplic succession, unchanged. So whatever we're able to do in spiritual life, we have to have that desire. Without that desire, of course, we'll not achieve very much, without that desire to spot our offences and to follow the rules and regulations properly. But in being successful, we have to surrender. This surrender is actually is part of the first beginning of our devotional service, is actually surrender. Prabhupada says that devotional service, we can be successful in 1 second, or we can take many lifetimes. 1 second. So some devotees, they don't accept that. I have heard them speak like this. Did Prabhupada really mean that 1 second? But there are so many places in Prabhupada's books where he states that this is a fact, that within 1 second one can become a surrendered devotee, like King Katvanga. He was fighting for the demigods for many years, and they were very pleased with the way he was fighting, so they offered him a benediction, and the benediction he asked for was to know how much longer he would live. And so they told him that he would only going to live for a few more moments. So immediately he surrendered, and he achieved success. So surrender means that Krishna, we believe that Krishna will protect us under any circumstance. If we think we have to take recourse to our own resources, like if we see some danger coming, we think we have to go underground or hide out, that means we're not having faith in Krishna. This surrender means that we have full faith that whatever situation we find ourselves in, any distress, that Krishna will protect us. So the other aspect, of course, that makes this effect of practicing devotional service immediate is that we accept the words of Krishna. The moment we accept the words of Krishna, we do that which is favorable, and we do not do that which is not favorable. At that moment, we will immediately, Prabhupada says, from the beginning of spiritual life, Krishna will protect us, right from the beginning. So we accept the words, just like, why did Arjuna have a problem in his dharma, in his duty? Because, well, he had a problem because he hadn't accepted Krishna's instructions. Therefore he had a problem, a very serious problem, that caused him much grief. But when he had heard the instructions of Lord Krishna, he was reconciled to the truth, and then he went out and severed a huge number of heads from their bodies in the battle of Kurukshetra. So once we accept the words and follow them, then immediately we will be transcendental. The problem is that we accept 1 minute and then we don't accept the next. We are following 1 minute and then the next we are not following, like that. So in that sense, if we go on like that, then our devotional service may take a long time to fructify, just like the Anatta Nivritti. It may take a long time for us to get through Anatta Nivritti. But once you understand that ultimately we have to surrender to Krishna, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that after many years you're going to surrender to Krishna anyway, because that will be the perfection of your speculation. The perfection of your speculation will be that I have to surrender to Krishna. So if you understand that, then why not in the beginning surrender to Krishna? Do that immediately, so that within seconds and not lifetimes we will become lovers of Krishna. So this is an appropriate day for which to pray to Lord Balaram, because Bala means strength, but it doesn't mean material strength, it means spiritual strength. Spiritual strength we need to be able to get through anatta nivritti. There's no doubt about that. We have to become very determined, otherwise we will simply be coming up and down in spiritual life. And Rama means enjoyment, so Balaram means physical strength, spiritual strength, in order to enjoy eternally. So Krishna is explaining this science to Arjuna because Arjuna is a devotee, therefore he can understand. And other places in the Gita it says that this science is really meant for those living entities who are what we call materially exhausted, who to some extent have realized that their struggle in the material world is futile and that there is no happiness here. They are the best persons to engage in devotional service. But because the devotee is more merciful than Krishna, we try to attract all living entities without discrimination. We approach living entities, but we do not approach the demons. That is considered to be an offense to preach to the atheistic people. Yes, so there's real science is the knowledge coming in the parampara. If your knowledge is not received from within the parampara, then it is useless. And in fact, even if we receive this knowledge and we can progress in spiritual life, if we don't ultimately come to the point of prema, then actually we could say, Prabhupada said it is useless. If we don't come to the point of prema, just like who was it fell down from the stage of Baba? Yes, Bharat Maharaj. He fell down from the stage of Baba. He was actually communicating with Krishna, but then he became attached to a deer. So these things can happen, and he actually knew that he was neglecting his spiritual duties. He knew that, but he thought it was a higher cause to give protection to the deer. So he was misled. Just like in spiritual life, we want clarity, we want conclusive truth. It's very easy to bend the truth, to speak the truth that in a way it sounds truth, but actually you have to bend the mind a little bit to understand it. The Vedic truths are actually direct knowledge. They don't require interpretation. We have to accept what is said directly without delving too deeply, because Krishna to our mundane senses is inconceivable. Atasi Krishna Namadi Nabhavad Graim Indriyai. With our material senses we can't understand Krishna or perceive, we cannot even perceive that we are spirit souls. So it's necessary to accept this science and without challenging spirit. If we simply accept, that is going to be to our benefit to advance very quickly in spiritual life. It won't take us a long time to achieve perfection. Hare Krishna. Do you have any questions, please? Yes.
It's not challenging question. It's just
That's all right.
leading to the discussion and understanding. You mentioned how, it's very important to rely on Krishna's protection. So how do we know? I'm just going to give you a story, you probably already know, and then ask questions for, I think, at least to help with them. So there's a story of a guy who praying to God, there's a big flood, and he's in danger, and he prays to God for help. And then, well, he doesn't pray to God. He just does his thing. And a boat comes by and says, hey, the water's going to rise all the way up. And he says, oh, don't worry, I'm just going to land up. And then the helicopter comes by and a couple other things. And then he dies. And he goes, God, why did you protect me? He says, well, I sent you a boat and a helicopter.
Right.
So how do we know, when to act and when not to? You know what I'm saying? You understand the question, probably, don't you?
Well, you're asking how do we perceive Krishna as protecting us?
Well, Krishna is definitely protecting us, but then, for example, another sample of this would be, how much do we have to do, and how much? Of course, we always rely on Krishna's protection.
Right.
How much do we have to do? Like the story of Maitreya's book, where a lion was in the area and decided to extend with a little stick. And he's like, how are you gonna? That's not gonna do anything. He said, well, we have to show Krishna that we're putting our effort. Or something.
Yes.
So, how much effort is? How do we know what that is?
Well, we have to use our intelligence to the best of our ability to protect ourselves. Just like if we're sick, you may go to the doctor or you may not, but we understand that a doctor can cure many things. There isn't any doubt about it, even in the West. So we can go to the doctor and he may cure our disease, but if the doctor doesn't cure us, then we should give it up. So we have to act intelligently, but understanding that only Krishna was actually going to protect us in the ultimate issue. I mean, you have to, God helps those who help themselves, you know the aphorism?
Yeah.
Yes. So you have to help yourself in whatever way you can. Like today I took notes. I never take notes. But today I took notes because I'm not feeling that strong in preaching. So in that sense, I had to help myself. I could have relied completely on Krishna, but then I may have dried up and gone blank, because it is a bit hot in here, isn't it? So in that sense, but ultimately only Krishna can protect us, because we're not the doers. This whole energy is being controlled by Krishna. The whole material energy is being controlled by Krishna. So how can we protect ourselves? We're all conditioned. So understanding that, we have to, as Prabhupada says, we have to work with valor, understanding that Krishna is doing everything. So we have to do our best.
As you said, 1 minute we are between and 1 minute we are. So how this happened? Now we are chanting and this thing.
Right.
When we go to chanting and when we are sitting in the room, the mind is wandering and some nonsense things are coming in the mind.
Yes. Right.
So how is this one that when we are chanting and this one and again, how these things are coming in our mind?
Well, the problem is, yeah, it's the question is, we're chanting Hare Krishna, but still we're having so many problems.
Well, you said 1 minute we are chanting, 1 minute we are mind.
Oh, the mind is not controlled, yeah.
Yeah, mind is not controlled. My mind is thinking so many things and so many nonsense things, unwanted things are coming in our mind.
Right. Well, what's supposed to happen is the intelligence should control the mind. If the mind is controlled, then the senses are like serpents with their fangs removed. The senses can't. If the mind is controlled, the senses aren't dangerous to us. So with the intelligence, we should be. But lust can sit within the intelligence also. We can be using our intelligence to gratify our senses, and that probably is the case. To gratify the tongue, belly, genitals, those things. We are using our intelligence to do that. But even so, the mind is so strong that sometimes, if the senses aren't engaged, they can carry away the mind, even of an intelligent person. So the idea is that we have to use our senses, engage our senses in Krishna consciousness. If all our senses in Krishna consciousness. Because if one sense is not engaged, then it's going to be a problem. It can be a problem at any time.
My point is that, that's whatever you say, I agree with. My point is that we are chanting, we are regular chanting, when we are sitting in the room.
Yes.
Unwanted things come in the mind.
Yes.
Which I don't like to listen also, like to hear also. But why do they appear in my mind, I must be?
Well, all our desires exist in bija form within the mind. All our fruitive desires, and they're in different states of manifestation. So it's only by devotional service that we can uproot the roots of desire. Otherwise, just like you can burn the tops off plants, but because the roots aren't destroyed, the desires keep coming back. So one has to be determined to fully engage the senses in Krishna consciousness. What other way is there? One has to be determined. That struggle in the beginning, that tadnata nivritti, is to follow very strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. The moment we don't do that, for instance, if we're idle, we have too much idle time, then we know what the consequences of that will be. If we overeat, we know what the consequences of that will be. It will be disastrous for our spiritual life. If we accept the philosophy, if we see jnana chakshush, if we see through the eyes of the scripture, that's the way we should see. We should see that if you can't control the senses, then especially the tongue, then you're going to have problems in spiritual life. It will destroy your devotional service. If you don't eat with moderation, that will destroy your spiritual service, and you won't be able to control your other senses. This is science. So to some degree, we're not controlling the senses, we're not engaging them in Krishna service, we're not controlling the mind, we're not chanting Hare Krishna with attention. Inattention is also a cause of other offences, to be inattentive. So it's a problem if you are sleeping during japa, that can cause a big problem in spiritual life. It can lead to apathy and other things. Just every day, if you're just nodding off, that means for that time you're inattentive. Your mind is not only wandering, it's gone.
I sit and read Bhagavad-Gita, I read Krishna book. I try to see that I will be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. I am trying my best.
Yes, you're doing your best. Well, if you're doing your best, I think...
Still, the mind is being disturbed. And although we are chanting, we are reading, we are doing everything, but still why unwanted things are appearing? Due to some past karmas or something else?
Well, there is some problem that we're not recognizing, obviously, because otherwise our faith is that, I can't remember the Sanskrit, that if we follow, then we'll get the result. That's the basis of faith. So it's necessary to accept that in some degree we're not following. In that it's very important to associate with like-minded devotees and senior devotees to find out in what respect that you're failing in spiritual life. I mean, if we want to advance, we not only have to imbibe the philosophy, but we also have to develop respect for devotees and know how to serve devotees. Otherwise we will remain prakrita bhaktas. So we have to learn those things, how to respect devotees, how to serve the pure devotee. Prakrita Bhakta doesn't have enough knowledge and doesn't know how to do these things. In actual fact, doesn't know who is a devotee and who is not. So it means recognizing to some degree that we're not doing it properly, otherwise we would get the result. I mean, in my instance, it's very clear to me why I'm not advancing a spiritual life. If we're honest, it should be clear to any devotee why he's not. If you're feeling envious towards other devotees or other living entities, it means there's some failing there.
Great subject, thanks for bringing it up. I just make a comment. Like in the big picture, here we are, spirit soul, became envious of Krishna. Then second that happens or whatever, we go into this material dimension, the false ego, with a material mind that has unlimited material desires and all combinations of two modes of material nature and condition. So, by returning to Krishna's service, following Guru's instructions, it's like we get in touch with the real self, but then the covering is all that conditioning. So as we stay in service to Krishna, that covering gets dissolved, which includes the mental covering, the mind, and all its desires, and all this stuff. So,
yeah, one point I've been making is immediately this will happen if we take up devotional service under the circumstances of total surrender and accepting the instructions. Immediately that will happen.
But at the same time, just in a moment, like you said,
Right.
for sure.
Yes.
It's not too common. So, but we should recognize that as we're doing this, you're actually making a great point, thank you, that you're right on, but that we're not maybe understanding, like for me, honestly, especially beginning, not a beginner, but we can not know what's going on, what our intentions are even on the level. So,
yes.
So then the mind, we should recognize that this external thing will make many sounds. It might make so much sounds. It's so huge. It's my experience, especially in the past. But if we stay fixed in our service to our Guru, that noise will recognize that we're not that noise.
What do you mean by that noise? Our fruitive desires?
Material desires.
Yes.
All these things will recognize that's not me.
Right.
I'm different from my mind.
Yes. Asango yam purusham. We have nothing to do with the soul, with the body.
Right.
You know the analogy of that, right? So how does this illusion work? The analogy is oil and water. Oil and water don't mix. But if you put oil in water, when the water moves, the oil moves with it. So when the material nature moves or interacts, then the soul becomes changed. Otherwise the soul is unchanging. The soul becomes changed under material conditions.
Becomes changed?
Yes. According to, because it flows with the water. The oil flows with the water flows. We have nothing to do with the water, but the water flows, and because we're in the water, then it's like you're always making the point about karmatmaka. Our mind becomes colored.
The mind is still material.
The mind is material, yes.
What I'm trying to say,
but it covers the soul.
We have a spiritual mind, we have a material mind.
Yes.
The soul is not that material mind. And all that noise comes from material mind. So that we really take shelter of that verse as the rivers enter the ocean,
yeah.
the ocean makes still.
That's
we're
right.
Really becoming situated in our devotional service. When we really are committed to that, which leads to what you were saying,
yes.
we really become 100% committed to that, we really separate ourselves, literally separate ourselves from the material.
That's exactly what happens. We separate ourselves to the extent that we just become a witness.
Right.
That
We
is
don't-
all.
We
We
no
are.
longer identify with it.
Was it 559? 5.9. It's explained.
But that requires to be firmly determined.
Yes.
But why are we firmly determined? Just like you said, because of the intelligence. We use our intelligence. That makes the most sense to be firmly determined. And then that separation from the material happens.
Yeah, we can apply the knowledge, but sometimes when we want to apply the knowledge, it's still not enough because our desires are. We still have a desire to gratify the senses. That's the problem. We still have a desire to gratify the senses, even though we know, from the point of view of knowledge, that it's never going to get us happiness. But this 5.9, a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. It's very clearly explained there. What is our real position if we're self-realized? Otherwise we identify with the material mind. That's our problem. We identify with the material mind and the material body.
But being fixed, sincerely fixed in the Christian service, that awareness that we're not that external, subtle or gross shell does take place. And then it becomes much more easy. Then you win battles.
Well, yes, of course.
You win a battle. Maybe once you win one battle, maybe you win another one, you win the whole war. Or just hanging.
Whatever happens to us, we accept as Krishna's mercy. Can't go wrong under those circumstances. Whether he puts us into distress or whether he gives us benedictions, we accept it as mercy. Whether we're able to understand something or not, it's all Krishna's mercy.
Can I move on to another topic? Is that okay? So, and actually another question on surrender, if I may. Do you have a question?
No, I was just that probably gave you a question answer. Like you were saying how much we should do.
How much?
How much efforts we should do to.
Oh, yes.
So in this Krishna book, I was reading, in first chapter, I just put it first. Same thing this Vasudeva says what you said. Yeah, Vasudeva says that Lord, Father of Krishna. Vasudeva wondered how he could protect his wife Devaki when there is a unique danger. An intelligent person should try to avoid the instances like whatever dangers or situation when some trouble, let us see. Vasudeva is saying, intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there is no fault on his part.
Ah, yes.
Who says that? Possible.
Yeah, there is a circumstance which comes to mind. Who is it? Prithu Maharaj wanted to do 100 horse sacrifices, was it?
Yeah.
And Indra kept stealing the horse because he knew that if he did 100, he'd be more powerful than Lord Indra. So they actually decided to call King Indra, and when he came, they were going to throw him in the fire. So the advice was, no, you can't do that because it's providential. What he's doing is providential. And the more you try to alter that which is providential, the more you'll become implicated in material thought. So it's a fine line, what is providential and whether I should act or not act. It's just a matter of good discrimination.
Regarding the same topic, for let's say a Maitreya like you and I don't know if I've seen the Maitreya, that we have, or somebody's taking shelter in the temple, that some temples, the way they run it, is they set aside funds for your retirement, for your health.
Do they?
Yeah.
No.
And some just say, well, you're on your own.
Ah.
And some will even say you shouldn't have any money. You shouldn't save anything for yourself. You just do actually save. You should have a bank account.
Well, that's right for brahmachari.
Well, and then you're supposed to just rely on
Yes.
Krishna. So how are we supposed to really practically, because it's a big deal.
No, I understand what you're saying, but it's a problem for us and it's a problem for the management also.
Yeah. In some temples they say, yeah, you keep your own savings. Some will say, we'll provide that with you, don't worry. And some will say, well, I don't know what will happen.
Well, it depends how their faith is. You know, some management, they always say there's not enough money, there's not enough labor, there's not enough resources. But I don't think that's a good excuse, because Krishna is unlimited. He can give us unlimited amounts. He says in the Gita, I will preserve what you have, and what you need I will give you. So if you don't have good faith, then if you try to control things according to your understanding, then it won't work. So I understand, yeah, because a lot of brahmacharis, they don't have faith now, not only brahmacharis, but grihastha, they don't have faith that our institution will protect us. There's no doubt they've lost faith in that. So this is not a good symptom. It's not a good symptom from a brahmachari to have a bank account. It simply isn't a good situation. And it's not a good situation. And it should be corrected so that we're all properly engaged according to our varna. It should be corrected. And it needs also for the grihasthas to realize that they have to maintain the brahmacharis, which they don't do now. They're not even interested. Mostly, a few are. There's no doubt a few are to some degree.
So with this answer we got Boston, what do we do regarding this?
Well, if we were better qualified, maybe we would be in control, but we're not. So we may not have faith in the leadership, but it's necessary to follow them, otherwise there will be no society. And have faith that actually Krishna will correct things eventually, which will happen. Eventually, you see, whatever situation you're in, if it's undesirable, if you're patient, Krishna will correct it eventually. You'll see, it will inevitably happen. But otherwise, if you're implicated in some situation, that's because of your desire also. Otherwise, Krishna will give you a better arrangement.
If I could just give you a scenario that's recently come up, I've been serving in this place for 16 years.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And not taking anything. And
you consider that was wasted time?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
No.
But, the leaders...
You acted in good faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
The leader is getting older, and I don't know how much longer he's going to plan. And if he leaves, really, the whole temple might probably fall apart.
Yes.
So, and GBC would just take all that.
Right.
So I asked the leader if I were to move to another situation, like go to another temple or whatever, would I be leading with anything? Because I do book distribution, advance.
Oh, you mean, would he give you anything?
And he said, you leave with nothing.
Uh-huh.
So I can either leave, so if GBC just takes in a few years, it might even be shorter than that, just takes everything and I have nothing.
Right.
I'm going to leave with nothing either way, but at least at my age, maybe I can work towards having something as opposed to being in a really precarious situation. And not only physically precarious, but how about this? This is my main concern, that I'm productively engaged with facility and distributing a lot of books and getting other people to distribute a lot of books. And a lot less books will go out, but I'm just in a really precarious situation for about 6 maybe months or a year to catch up. So how do I apply this?
Years ago, I can say from experience that everybody had full faith that if you wanted to be a devotee, that you would be you'd have total protection within ISKCON. There was no doubt. You would never be thrown out. But that kind of faith is not, I don't see that it exists now, because so many devotees have left or are marginalized because they don't have faith that the society will protect them and give them shelter. Like I have been engaged for 5 years, and I've been practically on my own for 5 years. I haven't, and to some degree I don't know what I belong to anymore. But when I come to Vrindavan, it's different. I feel very much connected here, and it's a wonderful experience. That's why, Prabhupada wanted everybody to come to Vrindavan to renew their faith, and it's necessary to do that. Otherwise, in the West, it's very difficult to be Krishna conscious, as you know from experience. But it's necessary that devotees stand up for the truth. We individually have to stand up for the truth and make the truth clear, conclusive, not to muddy the waters. Especially in this hearing and chanting, we hear the philosophy every day 2 times. It's necessary to clarify things, not that we always end in a position of debate or something inconclusive. We should be conclusive. That's why, we're not reaching a broader field of people. We're not reaching the world now because our preaching has become a little muddied to some degree, or we're not preaching as forcefully as we should be.
So, regarding my situation, what would be a conclusive way to go?
Well, you have to go where you can find shelter. That was advice my Guru Maharaj gave to me. He says you have to go wherever you can practice Krishna consciousness.
Practice it here and now in
yes,
situation.
Right.
When that situation is gone, it's going to be really challenging for me to be productive, especially if it's a little later in my life.
Right.
I only have so much left in me to be...
well, it is a challenge, but in the final issue, we have to depend upon Krishna. We've got to do our best to mold our lives so that we can remember Krishna, do our best, and then rely on Krishna.
Well, do you think it would be justified if I then share, that it's an option at least to consider that I can move on to a different situation for
Well, yes. Especially with regard to living in Vrindavan, because Vrindavan is very demanding about purity, so living in Vrindavan is very demanding as far as purity is concerned. So, Prabhupada recommended that unless you're very devoted, then you only stay here for 3 days and then leave. Otherwise, he said, if you become acclimatized to living here, then your anatas that you haven't got rid of will come back, and then you'll be in a very bad situation.
What I'm referring to is my situation in America.
Yeah.
Would it be a conclusive, reasonable choice to consider moving to a different situation where in the near future I wouldn't be in such a compromised
Yes,
situation?
of course. Especially if you're seeing through the eyes of knowledge and you see there are certain failings, why, of course, it's our duty to do that. But we have a guru to approach. My guru gave me instructions where I should stay, so I'm clear on that. If I want to leave, I have to clear that with him, and that's. I'm glad you reminded me about that. Something I'll have to do.
You said that?
Yeah, he told me specifically that I should stay in a certain place.
And if you want to move, you got to check it.
No, he didn't say that, but he just told me to stay in this one place.
Oh. So you feel that if you wanted to move, you should check it with him?
Yes,
Okay.
because I need his mercy, I need his sanction. Ultimately, we accept a guru for his instructions. He's going to take us back to Godhead.
Can I ask you, where is this guru?
Yes, Srila Satsvarup Maharaj.
Extremely helpful. Closer to home.
Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.